Toxic people thrive on reaction, control, and emotional chaos. But the truth is, you don't have to fight back or play their game to protect your peace. There's one powerful shift you can make. Do it once, and it changes how they treat you forever. This isn't about being rude. It's about setting a boundary so strong it becomes untouchable. Toxic people thrive on your reaction because that's the fuel that keeps their behavior alive. They poke, they prod, they throw out little jabs, and the moment you give them a spark of frustration or a raised tone or even a defensive explanation, they feel like they won. What makes them powerful isn't what they say, it's how much control they have over the way you respond. And the thing is, most people fall into that trap without even realizing it. They think defending themselves is strength. They think reacting is setting the record straight. But in reality, every emotional response is like handing over the keys to your peace. The very first step to stopping toxic behavior from affecting you is understanding that your silence, your calm, and your refusal to react is more powerful than any comeback you could give. Now, this doesn't mean you roll over or become passive. It means you make a deliberate choice to not feed the fire. Think about it like this. If someone is trying to push your buttons and you just don't move, eventually they run out of energy. Toxic people want chaos, but chaos needs two players. If you take yourself out of the game, there's nothing left for them to work with. They might escalate at first because they're used to getting what they want, but if you hold steady and stay calm, they start to realize they don't have the same grip on you anymore. That realization is what makes them back off, not because they respect you, but because you've shown them they can't win. When you stop giving your reaction, you're doing more than just ignoring them. You're actually shifting the balance of power. You're saying without words that you value your peace more than you value their approval. You're saying that you will not be dragged down into unnecessary drama just to make them feel better about themselves. And that's the kind of boundary that doesn't even need to be announced out loud. It shows in how you carry yourself. Toxic people will always test you to see where the weak spots are, but when they find out that you don't play that game, they're forced to look for someone else who will give them what they want. And this isn't about being cold or distant. It's about taking ownership of the only thing you can truly control, your own response. Every time you feel the urge to clap back, to explain, to prove your side of the story, you have to remind yourself that those urges are exactly what toxic people are counting on. They want you to lose your cool. They want you to stumble over your words. They want you to get so flustered that you start questioning yourself. That's how they win, not because they're right, but because they've gotten you to react. Breaking that cycle once and for all starts with building the discipline to stay calm no matter what they say. And that discipline doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice. But the first time you do it and you see their face when they realize you're not giving them anything, you'll understand the power in keeping your peace. There's a reason why the phrase "don't feed the trolls" works both online and in real life. Attention is oxygen to toxic behavior, and your reaction is the biggest form of attention you can give. Without that oxygen, their fire dies out. That doesn't mean they won't try again, but it means you've shown them that you're no longer an easy target. And when you combine calmness with clear boundaries, something powerful happens. They start to understand that there's no reward for messing with you anymore. And human behavior is simple. If there's no reward, eventually there's no effort. That one decision, that one shift in how you respond is all it takes to completely change the way they interact with you. It's also important to recognize that your reaction doesn't just impact the toxic person, it impacts you. Every time you let someone else pull you into their negativity, you're carrying that weight with you long after the conversation is over. You replay it in your head, you question if you could have said something different, you let it ruin your mood or your entire day. But when you learn to control your response and protect your peace, you walk away lighter. You're not carrying their baggage because you never picked it up to begin with. That's how you win, not by outshouting them, but by refusing to let them live rent-free in your head. And the truth is, the strongest form of self-respect is in the moments you choose not to react. It shows that you're in control of yourself, that no one else gets to dictate your emotions or your state of mind. Toxic people hate that because it means they've lost access to the very thing they were after. They can't control you, they can't use you, and they can't drag you down. And once you've done it once you've shown that your peace is not for sale, they'll never look at you the same way again because they've realized they don't have the power they thought they had. Boundaries are not about controlling other people. They are about controlling what you allow in your life and what you no longer accept. A lot of people think setting a boundary means forcing someone else to change. But the truth is, you can't control anyone's behavior. You can only control your own. A boundary is a line that says, this is what I will accept and this is what I won't. And it's a decision you make for yourself, not for the other person. Toxic people push and push because they're used to finding people who never draw the line, who let them get away with disrespect, who bend over backwards to avoid conflict. But the moment you create a boundary and you actually enforce it, you're sending a clear message that your peace matters more than their chaos. The biggest mistake people make with boundaries is thinking they need to explain them, justify them, or make someone else agree with them. You don't need to convince anyone why you need space, why you won't tolerate certain words, or why you won't engage in certain behavior. Your boundary doesn't need a debate. It needs your consistency. Toxic people thrive on convincing you that you're overreacting, that you're being too sensitive, that you should just let things slide. But that's exactly why they keep getting away with it. When you stop arguing about your boundary and start living by it, that's when they begin to realize they no longer have the control they once had. A boundary might sound like no longer answering the phone after a certain hour, or refusing to engage in a conversation that turns disrespectful, or walking away when someone raises their voice at you. These are small actions, but they carry weight because they show that you're serious about how you expect to be treated. And the key is not to say the boundary once and then cave the next time it's tested. The key is to show up the same way every time. Toxic people will test your limits because that's what they do. They'll push to see if you're really serious, and if you waver, they'll know it's just a matter of time before they wear you down. But if you stay firm, if you hold the line without giving in, eventually they see that the old tactics don't work anymore. And this isn't about being harsh or unkind. It's about respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your time, and respect for your mental health. If someone feels offended because you no longer let them cross lines, that's not your problem. It's their reaction to losing access to something they should never have had in the first place. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries even if they don't fully understand them. But toxic people will resist because it means the dynamic shifts away from their control. That resistance is proof that the boundary is necessary, because the only people who get upset when you protect your peace are the ones who benefited from you not having any. The power of a boundary is that it doesn't just stop others from mistreating you, it also reshapes the way you see yourself. Every time you uphold a boundary, you're telling yourself that you're worth protecting, that you matter, and that your peace has value. And over time, that builds confidence. You start to carry yourself differently. You stop second guessing whether you're allowed to say no, and you stop apologizing for taking up space. Toxic people can sense that change. And when they see that you're no longer the same person they could easily manipulate, their grip on you weakens. A lot of times people feel guilty about boundaries, like they're doing something wrong by creating distance or by refusing to engage. But guilt is just the conditioning of always putting others ahead of yourself. And toxic people will play on that guilt to keep you in line. What you have to remember is that boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. You cannot show up as your best self if you are constantly drained, constantly stressed, constantly on edge because someone else is crossing lines you never defended. By protecting yourself, you're actually protecting your ability to show up healthier and stronger in every other area of your life. And once you set that first boundary and you hold it without wavering, something shifts inside of you. You realize that you don't have to accept whatever treatment is handed to you. You realize that peace is not something people give you. It's something you create by the choices you make. Toxic people lose interest in people they can't control, and your boundaries are the clearest signal that you will not be controlled. That's why you only have to do it once, because the first time you show someone that line and you refuse to move it, you've already changed the way they see you forever. Silence and calm are louder than any argument because they create space where chaos cannot survive. Toxic people want you flustered, they want you loud, they want you defensive because that's where they have the upper hand. The moment you match their energy, you've already stepped into their arena. And that's a game you can never win because they're better at creating chaos than you are. But when you choose silence, when you choose calm, you shift the entire dynamic without saying a word. They can yell, they can insult, they can throw everything they've got at you, and instead of feeding it, you stand steady. That quiet confidence rattles them more than anything you could possibly say because it shows they no longer have access to your emotional buttons. Calmness is power in its purest form because it cannot be faked for long. If you're pretending to be calm while you're boiling inside, toxic people will sense it and keep pressing until you crack. But when your calmness comes from a place of real control, when you've decided their noise isn't worth disturbing your peace, it throws them off balance. They expect shouting, they expect defending, they expect to win the argument, and when none of that happens, they have nowhere to go. Your calm is like a mirror showing them exactly who they are, and most of the time they don't like what they see. That reflection is uncomfortable for them because it forces them to sit with their own behavior instead of distracting themselves with yours. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. People often think that by not responding, they're letting the other person win, but the truth is the opposite. When you don't respond, you're showing that their words carry no weight in your world. Toxic people feed on energy and silence starves them. It's the same reason arguments online go nowhere, because every reply is just fuel to keep it alive. When you stop responding, the fire burns out on its own. And in person, the effect is even stronger, because silence leaves a gap they can't stand. They'll try to fill it. They'll try harder to get a rise out of you, but eventually they realize the only one wasting energy is them. Calmness also gives you time to think clearly. When emotions run high, logic shuts down, and that's exactly what toxic people want. They want you reactive, so you make mistakes, so you stumble over words, so you regret what you said later. But when you slow everything down, when you stay level, you keep control of the moment. You start hearing things differently. You notice their patterns. You see the manipulation for what it is. And instead of being pulled under, you stay above it. That ability to stay calm is like armor that nothing can penetrate, because no matter what they throw at you, it just bounces off. There's also something powerful about how calmness affects everyone else watching. Toxic people love an audience. They love making a scene because they think it makes them look stronger. But when you remain calm while they unravel, everyone else can see the truth. People may not remember the words spoken, but they remember who kept composure. And over time, your reputation grows as someone who cannot be rattled, someone who carries strength without ever needing to prove it. And that's a kind of authority toxic people can't touch because it doesn't come from noise, it comes from discipline. Practicing calm isn't easy because everything inside you wants to defend yourself, to set the record straight, to clap back with the perfect line. But you have to remind yourself that calmness isn't about them, it's about you. It's about refusing to let someone else hijack your mood, refusing to let their negativity live in your body. When you practice it consistently, it becomes second nature. You start noticing how freeing it feels to walk away from a situation with your peace intact instead of your energy drained. And once you experience that freedom, you'll never want to go back to reacting. The first time you choose silence and calm in the face of toxicity, it feels different. It feels unnatural because you're so used to fighting back, but then you see what happens. You see how they stumble, how they don't know what to do next, how the entire script they were counting on suddenly falls apart. That one moment is all it takes to understand the power you hold, because you realize you never had to fight to win. You just had to stop playing their game. And once you've done it once, you know you can do it again and again until they finally understand they can't touch you anymore. Respecting yourself enough to walk away, even without an explanation, is one of the most powerful tools you can use against toxic people, because it communicates everything without a single word. When you decide to step out of a situation that drains you, you're showing that your energy is valuable and that you won't waste it trying to convince someone who has no intention of understanding you. Toxic people want to trap you in circles. They want you to stay stuck explaining, defending, and justifying until you're exhausted. But walking away cuts that entire cycle in half. It shows that you no longer need their approval. You no longer need to win the argument, and you no longer need to stay in a space that is costing you more than it's giving you. Walking away doesn't mean you've given up or that you're weak. It means you've chosen to take the higher road and protect your peace instead of fighting a battle that doesn't matter. Toxic people thrive when you stay engaged, because engagement is what gives them control. The moment you physically remove yourself, the moment you stop answering messages, the moment you choose distance, you've already won, because you've denied them the very thing they wanted from you. And the beauty of this choice is that you don't owe them a speech, you don't owe them closure, and you don't owe them any part of yourself they don't deserve. Your decision to walk away speaks louder than anything you could ever say. There's a natural instinct in all of us to want to explain ourselves, to tie up loose ends, to prove that we're right before we let go. But toxic people use that instinct against us, because the more you explain, the more they twist your words. And the more they twist your words, the deeper you get pulled into their web. That's why silence and distance are so effective, because they break that pattern completely. You remove the opportunity for them to spin your words, and you take back control of your time and your energy. Choosing to walk away doesn't mean you didn't have more to say. It means you realize that saying it would only keep you stuck in the same cycle. The power in walking away is that it shifts the responsibility back where it belongs. You're no longer carrying the weight of trying to fix them, or trying to change their mind, or trying to make them treat you differently. You're putting the responsibility back on them to deal with their own behavior, and whether they do or not is no longer your problem. That's the kind of freedom most people don't realize they can have, because they've been conditioned to think they must stay and endure. But the truth is, you're allowed to leave, you're allowed to choose peace over conflict, and you're allowed to prioritize your mental health over someone else's demands. Walking away also builds strength in ways you don't see at first. The first time you do it, you may feel guilty, you may feel like you abandoned someone, you may feel like you left things unfinished, but over time, you start to notice the difference it makes in your life. You feel lighter, you feel calmer, and you realize that the world doesn't fall apart just because you refused to stay in a toxic space. That shift in perspective is life-changing, because it shows you that you don't have to participate in every battle you're invited to. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is leaving the fight completely. And the people around you notice it too. When others see you walking away from toxicity instead of staying trapped in it, they start to respect you more, because it shows a level of discipline and self-respect most people struggle to find. Toxic people may call it running, they may call it quitting, but deep down, they know its power. They know that your silence and your distance prove that you no longer give them what they crave most, which is access to your energy. That's why walking away is so effective, because it not only protects you, it frustrates them. They can't win if you're not even playing the game anymore. The truth is, you don't have to slam doors. You don't have to make a dramatic exit. You don't have to prove anything at all. Walking away can be as simple as choosing not to engage, not answering the message, or removing yourself from the room. And that choice alone can change everything. It teaches toxic people that you can't be baited, that you won't be trapped in endless arguments, and that your peace is untouchable. And once you've done it once you've shown yourself that you're strong enough to leave without explaining, it becomes easier every time after that, because you finally understand that walking away is not losing. It's protecting everything you've worked so hard to build inside yourself. One strong act of self-control can shut down repeated patterns of manipulation, because toxic people are counting on you to lose your grip, to break down, to give in. And once you show them you won't, the entire rhythm of their behavior gets interrupted. They rely on predictability, on knowing that if they push hard enough, you'll eventually snap. But the moment you hold steady, the moment you stay calm and refuse to bend, you send a message that their old tactics no longer work. That one choice to keep your cool or to stand firm when they expect you to crumble becomes a turning point. And it's often the only moment you need to show them they've lost control over you. Self-control doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means mastering them so they don't control you. Toxic people thrive when you're emotional, when you're impulsive, when you're rushing to respond without thinking. But the discipline of self-control flips that power back into your hands. It's the pause before speaking, the deep breath before reacting, the choice to walk away instead of firing back. And while those moments may feel small, they're monumental because they change the outcome completely. Every time you choose control over reaction, you're breaking the cycle that toxic people depend on to keep you tangled in their drama. It only takes one moment of strength to rewrite the entire script they've been counting on. If someone is used to seeing you blow up, used to seeing you get defensive, used to seeing you fall apart the first time you don't, it shakes them. They don't know how to handle it because the pattern they've always relied on has vanished. That's why self-control is so powerful, because it's unexpected. They can prepare for your anger, they can prepare for your explanations, but they can't prepare for your calm. And when you hold that line just once, it forces them to rethink how they approach you moving forward.